to offer solutions to them. For instance, if you are asked in an exam um, about the ancient writing materials, if you are asked um, a question like the ancient writing material clay tablets were stored in the following except one: A. Wooden box, B. Woven basket of reed, C. Clay shelves, D. Catalog box. Where do we use to store um, the clay tablet? That is what the question is asking. Would be If you look at the options, you will see that they are very close to each other. Wooden box. Is it a wooden box? No, it is not a wooden box. What about woven basket of reeds? That is the answer. You, uh, if you could recall, I said the tablets were being stored in woven baskets made with reeds. Um, these reeds were mostly found in Egypt of the olden days, and that is where writing began. Okay, in the early years of writing. So the answer is woven basket of reeds. You could be asked in an exam, let me take this question. A library that is established in the secondary school premises to meet the information need of the teacher, students, and other staff of the school is called dash. Answer: reading library. B. Special library. C. Media resource center. D. Academic library. Let me take it one by one. Reading library is not a type of library. Special library is a type of library that cater for a particular field of study. And I told you that is example of such is Cocoa Research Institute library. That is not a library that is established within the school. What about an academic library? An academic library, though it is established in education environment, but it is not in the school. Academic library only exists in higher institutions like college of education, university, polytechnic, monotechnic, etc. So the answer is C, which is media resource center. Media resource center is another name for school library. So you could have missed it if you don't know the second name or another alternative name for school library. Another question. The scheme which use mixed notation alphanumeric is called dash. Mixed notation means uh, part alphabet, part numbers. That is what we call alphanumeric. This classification scheme, like we said, does not use alphabets. It uses only numbers. Colon classification, the same thing. Dot classification scheme does not also use numbers. Right, sorry, alphabets. So the only option there, which is library of congress classification scheme, is the only option that is correct, and that is it uses alphabets and numbers to answer the questions. So if you are joining me live, I want you to comment so that I will know that at least people are following. Okay. Another question I take: how many copies of book will a corporate author who publish a book in Nigeria drop at the National Library as stipulated by the copyright law? I said, um, for anyone who publish a book, you have a statutory obligation to drop some copies of the books in the National Library. Okay, this book, if it is an individual author, maybe you publish a book by yourself, you will drop 3 copies. If it is a corporate organization, say Taisho Learning College Education, it will drop 10 copies. Or if it is a government organization like Ministry of Education, Ministry of Agriculture, then such will drop 25 copies. Uh, so the answer, the correct answer, which is for corporate author, is what? 10. 10 copies of any book published by the corporate author must be dropped at the National Library. That is what the law says. Okay. Okay, there is a question here. Which of these is not primary function of the early library? Which of these is not the primary function of early library? A. Keep record of kings. B. Share library resources with all citizens. C. Keep government administrative record of trade and budget allocation. D. Collect resources on different subjects of science and principles of doing things. We will recall that I taught us that early library uses, it stores information as regard law by the library, by the king, as regard the trade, as regard um, different subjects of science and principles of how to do things. But early library, because is regarded as a secret place, were restricted to all citizens, but only open to scholars and the king, because they believe that those materials are of very high value and they have not much duplications. So then they used to keep the original manuscripts of laws, orders, and etc. in the library. So sharing library resources with all citizens is not the primary function of the early library. So technical, but that is the truth. So what they have obligation to do was to keep the record of the king's order, keep government administrative record, and then collect resources on different subjects of science and principle of doing things, and not to share the resources with all citizens. Yes, they share with some. Like I've said, ruling class, with people who have um, who have of who are scholars during that period. So those are the people they share the materials with. Okay, let me take another question. Okay, which of these is a feature of a special library? Which of these is a feature of special library? A, they usually have a very narrow scope. B, supply institution with information resources. C, Library of Congress classification scheme. D, dot classification scheme. Which of these is a feature of special library? The answer is A, because special library has a narrow scope, because they deal with a specific field, let's say agriculture, economics, or even a more narrow field like cocoa. And so because of that, um, you have that their materials are robust in the narrow scope area. Okay, let me take another question. Unfortunately, Afolabi just left now. I don't know why. Okay, let me take another question. Dash and dash are examples of reference materials. What are the reference materials? Reference materials are materials that you can consult, use in the library, and don't take it out of the library. Okay, you said which of these are example of that reference library? Afolabi Wahab, you are welcome. Okay, if you have a question that you want to drop with me, just drop your question. I will address it immediately. Okay. The options are A, magazine and map, B, newspaper and report, C, handbook and dictionary, and D, charts and journal. Afolabi Wahab, can you give me the answer to the question? I said dash and dash are examples of reference material. A, magazine and map, B, newspaper and report, C, handbook and dictionary, D, chart and journal. Do you know? Okay, all right. Um, the answer is handbook and dictionary. Handbook is a reference material, and dictionary is also a reference material. Number 12. Let me take this question. The classification scheme mostly used in academic library is called dash. Library of Congress classification scheme, Dewey Decimal classification scheme, Douglas decimal classification scheme, Bliss classification scheme. What is the right answer? The right answer is Library of Congress classification scheme. It is mostly used in academic library and special library. Okay, and the head of a university library is called the university librarian. University librarian.